So, it might be off, but Spurs may still try to prize Gibbs-White away. On Thursday, they confirmed the signing of Ghanaian international Mohammed Kudus. And with the move for the Forest midfielder also in the pipeline, it seems Thomas Frank has been given some substantial money to spend this summer. Joining us to talk about the direction of Tottenham right now, then, from inside Spurs, it's Sonny Snelling. Sonny, good morning. How you doing?
Hi, Sonny.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Very, very well, thank you. And great to have you with us this morning. So, first of all, let's talk about what's been done, shall we? In particular, Mohammed Kudus this week. How pleased are you to see that one get done?
Yeah, I mean, Tottenham haven't signed a player from West Ham since 2011, and that was Scotty Parker. So, hearing some West Ham fans, well, there's been a mixed reaction. I think when it first came about, they were all like, oh, no, we don't want him. We want to sell him. But now it's like they realise they've sold someone who was their most high-profile asset. And he is a good player on his day. I know he didn't really have a good season last term. I think it was 5 goals in the Premier League. But if you look at West Ham as a whole, they didn't have a good campaign in general. But then I can't say much for Tottenham's Premier League campaign last year. So I think this is a player that Tottenham need. When you look at the style of wingers and attackers we've got, we haven't really got a player like Kudus who can dribble for deep, make stuff happen. You know, Brennan Johnson, he's a goal scorer. Sonny's getting on a bit. So I think the profile that we've got in Kudus is pretty much what Frank had in like Mbeumo, but the wages that we wanted, or, you know, Mbeumo wants, and he's probably going to get from Manchester United, are something Tottenham couldn't afford. So they sort of pivoted, and Frank, as you know, Natalie, has got such a good track record of improving players. I'm actually confident he can improve a lot of this squad to go on to that next level.
Well, the interesting fact for me is that with Kudus, playing him and getting him to work around Solanke, because you mentioned Mbeumo, what his great asset was around Ivan Toney and Visa, that he worked around them. And I think Kudus is that type of player that can make the forward line be a little bit more versatile, but he works around players in forward positions.
Yeah, and I think we've got so many players at Spurs who, like, people will say, well, we scored so many goals over the last couple of years under Ange Postecoglou. But there were a few games where we didn't have that player who had that magic or essence where they could pick up the ball, drive at a defence, maybe in a low block. That's where we struggled, where a team would sit back, we'd have a lot of the ball, and there wasn't a player who had that X factor to find the pass to break the line. So, excuse me, I think Kudus could be that player, and I hope Morgan Gibbs-White will be as well.
Well, let's talk about Morgan Gibbs-White then, because a couple of days ago it looked like it was all set, it was all done. You've triggered this release clause, but now Forest have come out and said they're not happy. Some naughty dealings going on that they want to look into. Regardless of then of what happens in that situation, do you still see that Gibbs-White will come to Tottenham?
I mean, I'm still confident, and this is coming from a fan of a club where William was literally having his medical and he got whipped right out from beyond our feet. So I shouldn't be that optimistic as a Spurs fan. But I think, you know, when it's given the here we go on Twitter and the player wants to join and we've triggered a release clause, I feel like it's just a matter of time before it actually gets properly confirmed. You know, I feel like Forest are just dragging their feet. They've let go of Alanga. I think I was hearing you before saying, you know, they're probably trying to find a replacement, set up something, maybe James Maddison. But yeah, I can see it happening. You know, Daniel Levy is such a good businessman and he's really shrewd, so he knows what he's doing. I feel like, you know, some of the wording I've seen, I think people have gone to the nth degree and are getting really worried, whereas I feel like it's just going to be a few more crossing those T's, dotting the I's, and we'll see Morgan Gibbs-White playing in Lily White soon. But now I've said that, I bet I've cursed the move.
Well, it's a weird one, because obviously the Forest owner is thinking that, you know, there's been already movements from his team, the agents, players' team, to move on. But that happens all the time. You know, Forest have made huge amount of signings. I can't believe none of them, there was no contact made between the players' team around him. They're his agents, because that happens so often in football. It's a very difficult one to solve.
Yeah, I mean, when he was being linked with a move to Manchester City, the fee that was being bandied around was around 65 million. And then when this transfer, you know, was gaining speed on Thursday, there was this, you know, the rumour came out that he had a release clause and no one knew about that. So there's obviously some sort of leak where Tottenham have found that out, triggered it. And I think I heard Goldstein talking about it on Drive yesterday about tapping up players. And he was saying that it's becoming a bit of a weird thing. Like, it must. I mean, Liverpool did it with Virgil van Dijk. It's hard to know what level of tapping up people actually do, because there must be some communication.
Sonny, it's not really tapping up the player. It's more to do with getting involved with the team of the player. The agency who are speaking to many different people over the course of a season. That happens all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you mentioned Brian Mbeumo earlier on. Now, he was linked with Manchester United, has been linked for some time. And often part of that conversation was he has said he wants to join Manchester United. Well, where has he said that? If he said that to Manchester United, that's a form of tapping up, isn't it? Because, I don't think Brentford have said we've given you full wholehearted permission yet, because we haven't agreed a fee yet. So there's all that element. There is always tapping up in football. It's been going on for years.
The initial contact would be, the clubs want to find out if the player's interested in joining them. Okay?
Yeah, of course.
And that's where it starts. It's not literally saying we're going to go behind the club's back, but agents do find out if a player is interested. That's where it starts, and it ends with maybe something that's more concrete further down the line. But this happens a lot of times in football. It happened in my day. But, clubs wanted to find out if a player wanted to go to this particular football club.
Well, yeah, why else would you pursue them?
Yeah.
If they're not
You're wasting your time.
But I guess then, what does this mean? Because when this came out that you were going to sign him, my first thought was, what does this mean for James Maddison?
Now, I've been talking about this with a lot of my Tottenham mates, and we keep talking about Maddison, even Kulusevski. What we've got to remember is Maddison has had 2 big injuries in the 2 seasons he's been at Spurs, so we can't wholly rely on him for a whole, campaign in the Premier League, with Champions League as well. Tottenham fans now, the expectations gone up even more after winning the Europa League. I'm not saying we're going to go and, dominate the Premier League next year. I'm going to be patient with Thomas Frank and hope that he can build us up gradually. But we've always moaned about depth. We haven't got enough depth. Yeah. We haven't got enough versatility. We haven't got enough of a squad. And I feel like there's a place for all these players in a Thomas Frank system, because they're going to be asked to do, a multitude of different positions. They're going to be called upon on different moments, maybe substitute appearances. And, James Maddison's got a lot of stick over the last couple of months about his input into Spurs. Was he right to be celebrating the Europa League? And he did have a good campaign. When you look at his numbers, when you look at what he contributed in that Europa League run, he's still a really important part of this squad. And he's also, one of the captains. And if Son is, potentially could leave, if Romero could potentially leave, he's still one of those vice captains. So I still think there's a place for James Maddison. And if, say, Frank's playing a 4-2-3-1, you maybe ask him to play in the double pivot with someone. He is that versatile, and on his day, he can be a fantastic player. So I'm not too worried about, we've got too many players that are playing too many positions. I mean, first of all, I'm shocked I'm saying this as a Spurs fan. We seem like we're lining our ducks in a row already, buying-wise, it's now selling, where we've got to see where, can we maybe sell a Richarlison or a Basuma, because, it's sort of, we are getting a bit of a bloated squad now.
Well, you're going to expand your squad because you won a European trophy, and you've got more money coming into the club. So, the club's spending it on bringing in a better quality of player as well. And Maddison's still got a place to play at Spurs. I still believe that, like you've just said, Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tottenham's attack. I like the, different options that we've got, Solanke up top. If we could maybe get, we were being linked with Visser, and I feel really sorry for Brentford, Natalie, that all these players are seeming to be linked, but it shows how good some of these players are. So I feel like we've got loads of different options. We've got, Matthias Tell's come in, a young, versatile winger who's showed a lot of potential. I feel like Tottenham are just, there's a few other areas we need to sort, maybe, a backup left back, a 6 potentially. But I feel like Thomas Frank's going to put a lot of faith in Archie Gray because he wanted him at Brentford. I just really am confident that Thomas Frank is going to improve a lot of these youngsters, with Bergvall. I just feel like there's a really rich squad there that he's going to sink his teeth into.
Yeah. Okay. An exciting summer ahead, and perhaps season 2 for you, Sonny. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Cheers, Sonny.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
That's Sonny Snelling then from Inside Spurs, giving us the fans' take then on what's going on at Tottenham.